Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here for our press conference that we have each Wednesday after our Tuesday council meetings as an opportunity to go over in a little more detail, some of the issues that were discussed at the council meeting the night before, but also give the media and citizens a chance to ask any follow-up questions that they might have. Before we get into some of the discussions from last night, I wanted to say thank you to all the emergency personnel and volunteers who worked so diligently during the tornado that we were facing last week. Our thoughts and prayers are still going out to the folks in Caledonia. There was much damage there. We had we had police officers volunteering that night to help with the sheriff's department. We had people calling in from all over the country, checking to see how the weather was here. I even got a phone call from the Washington Post that night, if you can believe that. But we were fortunate that we didn't have any fatalities, but there are people that are suffering. I ask you to continue to keep them in your thoughts and prayers, and thank you to everybody who was looking out for folks that night. One of the things that I've been discussing with our CFO recently is the lack of storm shelters that we have in the Columbus area. So we're beginning to do some research for potential FEMA grants where that we could ask for money to build larger storm shelters in the area. We have tried to get smaller storm shelters for our parks and fire departments, which we're still going to try to work on, but we see a real need in this area because, as everybody knows, we're very prone to straight line winds and tornadoes. So we'll continue to update you on that. We're just beginning to look at where there's some possibilities for funding on that. But again, thank you everybody for your due diligence during that storm, and it's important that our citizens stay safe during activities like that. And with the weather that we're having now, with the temperatures going back up again, who knows? It's crazy to think we're having tornado weather in December, but it is Mississippi. Also wanted to thank all the organizations that have been pulling together Christmas events. Recently, Columbus Main Street has helped with the lighting of our Christmas tree, Wassail Fest, a great Christmas parade. We've had a lot of citizens turning out for these events. We thank all the volunteers and all those who participate as we celebrate this very special time of year. I also want to commend a lot of our nonprofits like United Way, the Salvation Army, Local Benefits Committee, and many, many others who are adopting families and helping families in need during the Christmas season. I encourage our generous citizens to continue to give to these groups, but I also caution you when you're donating during the holiday season, there are also some scam artists out there who are not true nonprofits that will try to take advantage of your generous heart. So as you're opening up your pocketbooks to help others, which is a blessing, and it's always better to give than receive, I truly believe that, just make sure that you're mindful of what organizations you're supporting. Also, a reminder that we still have a lot of food pantries in the area that need filling that the Benefits Committee oversees. So there's all kind of opportunities for you to bless someone during this holiday season. Last night we swore in 2 new police officers, Dustin Capps and Neosha Dozier. Congratulate them. Want to also remind people that our new chief, Joseph Daughtry, will be starting the 1st of January. We're working on a swearing-in ceremony for future Chief Daughtry. Many of you have seen him around the community a little bit. He is been kind of coming back and forth, trying to meet with citizens and working with our interim chief, Dorian Johnson, who we appreciate his continued work in this role as we try to work towards a very smooth transition in the department. Many of you have told me that you've met the new chief. Many of you have told me how much you appreciate our interim chief's work in the process, so we'll continue to try to work very hard to make that a very smooth transition for everyone. I did get a reminder from a citizen today that we're also coming into the fireworks season with Christmas and New Year's Eve coming up. This is a reminder to all citizens that it is illegal to fire fireworks within the city limits. And it's very hard for our officers to be able to maintain that. But I ask people to really seriously consider that there's a lot of elderly people in your neighborhoods that it's very disturbing and frightening to. Also, their pets many times get very disturbed by the loud sounds. So if you've got a real need to shoot a firework or a sparkler, well, sparklers don't make noise, they're fine. But anything that's loud and obtrusive to your neighbors, please try to go into an area of the county where it is legal, or watch them on TV. But we're going to be looking closely at the neighborhoods where we get a lot of complaints on fireworks, and again, it is against the law. So I ask people to be very cautious with that. Let's move into some of the things that we discussed last night. One of the things that we voted on, which I'm very excited about, is the agreement between the city and the county to purchase a GMCS. Is that what it is? GCMS. It's an important machine they need to test at the lab, the crime lab here in Columbus. I'm very excited that the county and the city are working together on this. It's been one of my top priorities, is to have the city and the county working more closely on projects like this to benefit all of our citizens, and I'm very grateful to the Board of Supervisors and to our City Council for finding a way to make this happen. We truly feel that our crime lab is a real gem for the city. Not very many municipalities have one. We have been looking for quite some time for ways to improve ours here locally, and we will continue to do that. The city is also studying potential lease agreements where we could lease another machine to help with the backlog of work. When there's a backlog like that, it affects the judicial process. If you drive by the courthouse and see tons and tons of people out there, it's because it's difficult to get the evidence through the processes that we need. And if there was an article recently too in the Clarion Ledger that discussed just how bad it is in Jackson at the state lab. So the fact that we have one, and that we not only serve our community, but we serve other municipalities and counties doing their work as well, will give us the income to purchase one on a lease. I personally prefer the lease process because the technology changes quickly in these machines, and it gives you an opportunity to stay on top of having the best machines. Also, when they break down, like the one that our crime lab is using now, they're constantly trying to fix it to keep things moving. So all that's very positive news. And again, thank you to the supervisors and the city council for that. Another project that we're working on with the county is that we recently had a local industry reach out to the city and the county about the possibility of purchasing the Maxim Medical Center that is off Yorkville Road here in our old industrial park. The city and the county has owned that building jointly, and it's a large one, for probably over 12 years now. Since 2008. That building was donated to the Mississippi State University Foundation at that time, and the city and the county purchased it from the foundation for $200,000, $100,000 from the city and $100,000 from the county. Well, that took it off the rolls for income from tax resources. And so we've been using it now for that length of time for primarily storage for both the city and the county. Well, I'm proud to say that the city and the county, the supervisors and the council have both voted to allow the attorneys for both the city and the county to work with the industry that's interested in purchasing it, to try to come to an agreement so that they can use the facility. It will not only bring it onto the tax rolls again, which will be great for the city, because we don't have a lot of industry inside the city limits right now, but It will also allow this industry to grow and hire more individuals in the area. They have about 20 or 30 employees now. They will add another 20 to 30 when they purchase this facility, and then in hopes in the next 3 to 5 years move up to 100 employees. So that's great news for us. We're going to leave it at that at this point because, again, it's in the talking phases, but it's a real win-win for the city. What I'm also hoping is that having an industry like this come into the city will be a way for us to help market to some of our other empty buildings within the city, the old industry. It's going to be hard to attract really big industries into the city limits for obvious reasons when they're needing more land and space. But there is, I think, a need for niche and entrepreneurial industry that's coming on board. And I think that we've got a lot of opportunity in the city to try to market to that group, which would be very beneficial for income and growth of the city. So not only is this business coming in right now a very positive thing once we get everything worked out, but I think it'll be a way for us to potentially grow that in other areas. Last night, there were some questions about the docket of claims on where we were paying fees to Wagner Engineering. Let me try to, and I've got Jim here too if we need any more specific questions on that. We are working with Wagner Engineering with our ARPA money, the American Rescue Plan money that we've had for a little over a year now, and we've set aside $3 million of that money. It was originally $5.7 million for watershed and flooding, and it's time now for us to ask the state for the matching funds to move forward on these projects. Of course, we are paying fees to all services that we receive from all engineering companies, from our legal, everything city pays fees for the great work that they do for us. The question last night was the council was concerned that they thought the fees were coming out of the ARPA money itself, and we were trying to remember if we had voted on that in a council meeting. What we have found this morning is that we did not vote in a council meeting for where those fees would come from. Jim was working off of notes from a work session and stuff where we had talked about using the modernization, I can't hardly pronounce that word, fund, so that to use that money to pay the fees so that we won't be using the money that we could potentially get matched through the ARPA funds. That will be something that the council will have to vote on again if they would prefer it to come out of the ARPA money. The question about the modernization fund is because it can be used for roads, sewage, ditches, all that kind of stuff, and we have so many infrastructure issues within the city. We're trying to be as strategic as we can in how we use those funds. And you've heard discussions about the cleaning of the ditches and that type of thing, and the modernization fund could potentially be used for that. Some of the ARPA money that we're using will be used in the watershed areas, but there are other needs of cleaning within the city. But the important thing to know is if we clean the ditches, because our public works office doesn't have the equipment to properly clean them, we'll have to outsource that. So that's more money. The discussion has been if we do all the ditches at one time, it could potentially, because of our poor infrastructure, could actually cause more flooding by releasing so much water at one time. So what we're trying to do is work through what is going to be best and how to use the money most effectively for the citizens. So that's what that discussion was about last night, and Jim is here if we want to ask any other questions. Let's see. Another discussion that came up last night, which is very important, is we're still having issues with waste management. And when I say waste management, I'm thinking of picking up your garbage. Yes, Golden Triangle Waste Management is who we're dealing with. I wasn't saying them specifically, but that is who we are outsourcing with right now. And citizens are still not happy with the pickup. We have been working with them to try to come up with plans that would make it more efficient. They are still having a hard time getting the trucks that they need to do this effectively. But since we were talking about this early on, I had mentioned that even before these issues were happening with Golden Triangle Waste Management, Golden Triangle Waste Management, for those who don't know, is a nonprofit that was started by 6 counties in the area, and Lowndes County being one of them. And they service all those counties. The city of Columbus is just one of 2 municipalities that they serve. And so what we had talked about even before this happened was, because there's been a lot of concerns about having trash cans for citizens and all these different things that go on with garbage pickup, and the fact that there is better technology out there for garbage trucks than when the city ran their own garbage program. We have been talking about, again, even before these incidents happened, that would be good business practice for us to look to see if it was something that could be brought back into the city, or and 2, do a RFP and put it out and let other professional waste organizations apply for that RFP to see if they could potentially do the work better for us. Another area where we have concern is with recycling. So that will all be a part of the RFP that we put out soon. As I mentioned last night at the council meeting, our city attorney actually feels like if we wanted to, our contract is up when? In September? August of this coming year is when the contract is up with Waste Management Authority, not Authority, but Golden Triangle Waste Management. And but because of the services right now, we could break the contract with them because it technically breach of services. But gearing up to bring in another group to do the work is not going to happen overnight. So that's why we want to try to get the RFPs out very soon, so the city can begin to look at what all options are out there. And then, consider what we find and compare to what our services are now. There obviously could be changes in cost and services that are offered. But the city is very serious about, we understand how upset our citizens are about the garbage pickup, and we are doing a lot now to try to make it a better situation than we're facing right now. So I think that was all that I was going to bring up directly. Can y'all think of something that I need to? I'm gonna let Jeff come up real quick and talk about the other issues that we talked about in the executive session. The Maxim Medical was a topic that we talked about in executive session during our work session on Thursday. The Board of Supervisors talked about it in their executive session that Monday before, and then we took it up again last night in our council meeting. But we also had some personnel issues that I'm gonna let Jeff speak to.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor. So in executive session, the council took up a grand total of 5 matters. The Maxim Medical was one of those, which the mayor already covered. The others were personnel related to job performance. The first item of personnel was the council had approved the hiring of a fireman, and didn't show up for work, so they rescinded the offer to employ him. And the next item, they voted unanimously to rehire a fireman that was formerly with us but left to go work in another city, and then he decided to come back. So the council voted to rehire him. The third item of personnel related to job performance of a number of employees in the Public Works Department, and they downsized the department by 1 employee and used the savings from that attrition to fund pay raises for a number of employees in the Public Works Department who the Public Works Director felt were doing exemplary work, and we don't want to lose them. And the last item was to approve the hiring of 4 recruits for the police department and 1 lateral hire from another town that the the new police chief, Daughtry, brought to us for consideration. And that was it.
Any questions on that?
Jeff, I got one question.
Sure.
On the Mack Medical Building, is it being used now for storage
Yeah,
primarily?
it's storing a bunch of junk. There's a bunch of junk, there's some stuff of value in there. A lot of it, I think, has just been put in there and forgotten about. The county, board president and the mayor and I talked about it, and I think the sheriff has used a new company called evidenceroom.com to auction off surplus property. So actually, I think at the end of the day, whatever the county and the city get for the sale, they're gonna make some more money when they sell off all the stuff that's just being stored out there. There's a lot of it is of no use to the city or the county. Some of it is, but they'll just have to find a new place for it. I mean, I think everybody's in agreement that we need the industry, we need the jobs. And storage, we didn't have that facility in '08 and we were managing to operate just fine.
So y'all don't have any offices out there, nobody's working out there per se, it's just kind of the city's.
Well, the city does it now. The coroner is out there right now.
Right.
So there would be, a need to relocate the coroner at some point, depending on what the decision is on the sale. Also, I think animal control had some space out there at one time. I think they've used it in the past for training, for drug seizures and stuff, working with the animals in there. It is a very large facility that has cars, trucks, fire trucks. It's got anything you can imagine is in there. There's storage of different things, so it's nothing. And when we were approached about potentially purchasing it, we went through the steps of seeing what it would take to what impact that would have on the city and the county, and everybody agreed that we could find a solution because the building is deteriorating too. It would take quite a bit of money for the city and county to really fix it up to a level of, and maintaining it in the level of that it should be. There's leaks out there. So this is a real positive win-win, we think.
Do you know how big that building is?
It's huge. Does anybody know the dynamic? We can find it.
It's hundreds of thousands of square feet.
Yeah. In fact, the industry that's looking, or the business that's looking at purchasing it would not use the entire building in the beginning probably, but would have it for growth. And yeah.
Back to Wagner and the ARPA people.
Mm-hmm.
Are we talking about infrastructure like sewage and water that's gonna help us when we gotta do some of this stuff out there in our ditches and all that kind of stuff? Are we gonna do upgrades in those areas?
Mm-hmm. All right. The city, as we all know, is almost 50% in flood zone. Columbus is much like a New Orleans in that we're almost like a bowl, the way we sit. So there's certain areas of the city, and many people can think of some of the places that we have some huge flash flooding, like on College Street, but there's also a lot of neighborhoods that once we have just a heavy rain, their yards are, you can't hardly walk through them for over a week. They can't cut the grass. There's just there are a lot of homes and places where water is seeping in. Back in the 70s, when the city did a study, it was shown then that our infrastructure, the size of our ditches and pipes and stuff, was not adequate. And so since the 1970s, there's nothing really been done to address that, because it's hard to have, for cities and counties for that matter, to have the kind of infrastructure money, capital money that you need to fix those things. So we've just been kind of kicking it down the road since the 70s. And so you can imagine how much more expensive it is to fix those things now. So it's been assessed that we have about 48 to $49 million worth of infrastructure, which is under the ground work that needs to be done, and watershed to help stop the flooding. The ARPA money that came down, was an opportunity for the city and the county to leverage that money because you could get it all matched 1-to-1 from the state. That's what they were telling us in Jackson. Also, we've been to Washington to find money to help do the long-term plans to show what is the best route for correcting the infrastructure issues through watershed and stuff. We don't have that information. You have to do that. The federal government won't give you more money until they see that you have a plan that will actually work. That's what we're trying to get the $2 million from DC now. What we were talking about earlier on the $3 million, that would be matched for $6 million. The county has not released it to us yet, or even voted to, but they have agreed without actually, giving us, a letter of assurance for $450,000 of their ARPA money for this. So if we get all that matched, there are two major areas within the city that Wagner has recommended that we do infrastructure work, but there would also, ditches would be cleaned in those areas too, that would alleviate. 15th Avenue North is one of the places we're talking in, and then near Brickyard Road is another. The other one that is high on priority is there at the end of College. So when we put, they need to go ahead because they've got to get these proposals in by the end of January to the state to get them matched. So last night's vote was to give them permission to move forward in asking for that. So we're trying to find ways to pay the engineering fees without bringing it from ARPA. Because if everything we take out of ARPA, you've lost your match. And we have already spent, the $1 million that we gave to Light and Water was matched. We've used $408,000 on 2nd and the 10th Avenue culvert, which was matched. The incentive pay, $681,425, will not be matched. The work at the East Columbus Gym, $22,000, will not be matched. And the study of blight is not matched. However, we're trying to use that money that we've set aside for that, for cleaning up the blight, to use that money to leverage to get more money from DC. We should know, I think by December the 15th, if we're getting the $3 million that we asked to increase our blight program. So the others that I mentioned, the $3 million, and this is just earmarked. I mean, we've got to get the stuff into the state to get it matched. The $1 million from Light and Water has already been matched, and the 408 on the culvert, which was a flooding issue as well, has all been matched. So we're trying to squeeze out every penny that we can to be matched, because that gives us more leverage. And the more that the federal government sees that we're doing these things, the more likely we are to get more federal funds. And there are federal dollars out there to help issues like this, especially in a city like Columbus, when we have, a large area of our city that's in poverty and areas that have been, I would say, neglected over the years. The money that's coming down from DC right now is really the money, the $2 million. That's one of the things they're really looking at, is for this money to be used in underserved areas. And Columbus fits that mold very well. So what we're trying to do is, this is difficult work. So we're trying to do it in a way that we can articulate it where everybody can feel good about how we're using it, and help us move forward to get these things. I don't think, there's no one that's trying to block this for a bad reason. These are just, you don't have this kind of money to work with often. So when you're working with 6 people on the council and 5 people with the Board of Supervisors, it's hard to get full consensus. As y'all all know, I was wanting all of it used for this, because their 11 million and our 5 could have been matched, from the state, and then potential more federal dollars. But the city and the county have a lot of needs. And so when you have, you've got to compromise and make decisions. I'm not pointing a finger or blaming anybody. What I feel is that we have got to tackle these infrastructure issues within the city, or we're never going to get, if we clean the ditches, that's wonderful, and they need to be, but we know we don't have the equipment to maintain them. So do we clean them and then buy more equipment? Do we clean them all and then let the water release and go where, are we strategic and we do it around the areas that we're focused on? Those are the things we're trying to work out. And, you know, nobody should be mad or angry at anybody or pointing a finger at any individual on the council or the board of supervisors, because everybody's trying to do the best with the limited resources that we have.
Is the potential, the interest in Maximum Medical, is that from a local company or is it somewhere in the area?
No, it's someone that's currently in the county. Any questions from anybody watching, Joe?